Okay, so yesterday even, saw the biggest antitrust hearing I've ever heard of. It was massive. Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon were there. Microsoft wasn't. They've been playing within the rules recently. Fair play to them. I'm glad they got their act together since the 1990s. To be honest, walking it's back. Now, you may notice this is on July 30th, and there will actually be 2 episodes today. This is the start of the next day. This is going to be happening very infrequently. Don't expect this to happen often, and that is on purpose by me. But there's a massive tech event that's happening late at night in the UK, and I can't watch all of it because I need my rest. Because I've also got other work besides this podcast. Then I will just not do an episode that night. I won't have any notices or anything. I will do notices from now on saying, hey, coming the next day. But this is the start of the next day. So today is focusing on Congress. The next one could, if it goes on for long enough, be focusing on the Samsung one. However, that is very unlikely. The Samsung one probably won't be as late or take as long. So let's get started on this. Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon versus Congress. The way I'm going to do this is I can only record up to 30 minutes in my web browser. Now, whilst I could record for longer on my phone, or I could record for longer on my iPad. Actually, no, I can't record on my iPad because I don't have a microphone. But whilst I can record for longer on a myriad of other devices or other services on my computer, this 30-minute time limit actually gives me a really nice framework. So I'm going to, I want to thank Anchor for providing a way to do a framework really easily. And I'm going to tell you now how the framework is going to work. So first half an hour, I will go through a small introduction into what each company tried to say and kind of what Congress was asking, and whether there were any hidden agendas both from companies or from the politicians that I could figure out myself and that I have interpreted. There are a few, spoiler alert. Then the remaining 4 sections, because this is going to be a 5-section podcast, will focus up to a half hour on Google, up to a half hour on Amazon, up to a half hour on Facebook, and up to a half hour on Apple. Now, Google and Apple will also have their own separate, possibly even longer podcasts on Apple analysis and Android analysis. These two are going to be fairly big, kind of editorial, let's say that. No, I know. Anyway, they're going to be massive. They're going to be quite big for what they are, and it could go on for a while. So if you want to see what all of them said, stay here. If you want to see what Apple and Google said, at the same time this one is released, or maybe an hour after, I'm not sure quite yet. It depends on timing of what I can set up in an hour. It's possible I will have both this and the Apple podcast and the Android podcast, which will be Google's testimony. So with all of that, let's get started. So my name's Luke, this is Dan at Digital World the next day, and let's get started. So the CEOs of Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon, as previously stated, have testified in Congress, and it did not go well in my opinion. I watched small parts of it, and I've also watched recollections from CNET, which showed 15 minutes or so of the most intense questions the companies faced. James Sensenbrenner, a ranking member who's a Republican, said that being big is not inherently bad. Quite the opposite. In America, you should be rewarded for success. We're here to better understand the role your companies have in the digital marketplace, and importantly, the effect they have on consumers and the public at large. End quote. This is a very different statement to how Ciceline, I believe that's how that's pronounced. I really do apologise if this is incorrect. Said that this would occur. He laid out common patterns across the 4 companies, saying each is a bottleneck for a key channel of distribution like an ad market or app store, App Store, I would say, more refers to Apple than Google. There's alternate app markets such as Aptoide, which I have on my phone, as well as the Galaxy App Store. And they all kind of allow sidestepping the Google Play Store. Google themselves advertise it as a feature on Android. But you can sidestep, you can have your own app stores. It's a very big feature. The fact is that Apple, they are a walled garden, and that was actually something being thrown at Google instead of Apple, which I was quite surprised by. But the fact is, Apple is a very walled garden with the App Store approach, and they have a lot of power over the App Store, and they were questioned on that massively. So I got kind of 3 articles here, not one for each of them, but two kind of overlying articles, one with their similarities, which is what I'm going to go over first, and then another one about one with kind of just general questions, are the biggest questions asked and their responses. And I got the third article, that Instagram can hurt us, where Mark Zuckerberg emails to outline a plan to buy Instagram. So let's go on with their similarities. Now, this actually started since last June. Lawmakers have been engaged in sweeping antitrust investigation into the tech sector, trying to decide on whether they're growing too big by stifling competition. Now, they have hundreds of hours of testimony and obtained over 1 million documents throughout the investigation. So, CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos were unable to evade uncomfortable lines of questioning. For Jeff Bezos, this was his first time in front of Congress and first time in front of a congressional hearing. So I do have to cut him a bit of slack for his him being fairly uncomfortable. It was his first ever hearing, as far as anyone is aware, as far as I myself am aware, and I believe he did fairly well. Now, throughout the process, and under, again, I'm going to say cisaligned leadership, I do apologise if I'm wrong, they found troublesome patterns of behaviour all 4 firms exhibit. So they said that although these 4 corporations differ in important and meaningful ways, there are common problems between competition and common patterns with all of them that they've observed over the course of the investigation. They have massive will over distribution of information and products. Apple and Amazon, as I said previously, have tremendous power over who gets to put up apps and sell products. In fact, Representative Val Butler Demings, from a Democrat in Florida, asked Apple CEO Tim Cook about its App Store rules. So, for example, asking about the fact that Apple decides to remove third-party management apps that use MDM tech. I actually have an MDM profile on one of my iPads, and I believe it's still MDM. Yeah, I have a mobile device management profile on my device, and Apple allows it. But just barely 6 months after Apple's decision to let me get this straight. So, Apple introduced Screen Time in 2018. After introducing Screen Time, multiple parental control apps were removed, because citing that they use MDM and Apple has concerns about their privacy. They then were questioned about that, but 6 months after the launch of Screen Time, these apps were then unceremoniously allowed back onto the App Store, whilst parents had had a tremendous amount of time to just engage themselves more in Apple's own ecosystem. Google caught fire for keeping a watchful eye on competitors in search. Personally, I believe this would happen regardless, as any company that has access to search data, and any company that has access to any data, be it Google, be it Apple, be it Facebook, be it Amazon, be it the smallest companies to larger companies, every company is going to keep an eye on data. It's a matter of how you utilize it and what you try to do with that data that matters. But Google allegedly threatened to delist its reviews if the giant couldn't feed them into its own product, when questioned about how Yelp worked. So, for those of you who don't know, Google apparently gets Yelp reviews in their review samples, and Google threatened to delist Yelp if they weren't allowed to use their reviews in their own products. It extended into all of the others as well. Facebook's purchase of Instagram is a key moment in this, and I will be switching specifically to that as an example of Mark Zuckerberg in section 2 of today's podcast. Note, this podcast is going to be recorded throughout the day with me taking small breaks to ingest more information as I go. Now, they all have dominance in their respective markets, although Apple does apparently, and as far as anyone is aware, not have an overarching kind of percentage of popularity in any one space. They are still very dominant in the mobile industry, and when compared to Google for how their operating system runs, as I previously stated, Apple owns sole control. Google is one of myriad manufacturers. And yes, whilst Google does kind of outline basics, companies like Samsung have had certain features that stock Android hasn't had. So for example, I had dark mode on Android 9, which I hadn't actually realised wasn't stock for other Android 9 devices. I only actually found out recently when I was using my old phone and I was running some just installing Android 10 on it, and I realised that in stock Android 9 I hadn't had a dark mode when Samsung had. Because I hadn't had stock Android 9, I had Samsung Android 9. I then went to non-stock Android 9, upgraded it to non-stock Android 10. I noticed a massive difference. Google is one of the many myriad manufacturers themselves, and Android itself is fully open source. Apple, on comparison, has complete control over the operating system. Now, this is scary. Oh, okay, hang on. So, the committee plans to issue a report at the end of the summer laying out its findings. Congress can't do much to break up big tech. I'm not gonna lie. I don't mind. I don't mind hearing that. It'd be scary for even Apple to be broken up. Currently, I use the iPad, and that is my daily drive for anything on tablet. Agents, so they don't have anything to break up big tech, but they can craft legislation aimed at regulating it. Facebook and Google, however, are already under antitrust scrutiny by law enforcement, as agencies like the FTC and Justice Department are the only bodies with the authority to penalise tech over anti-competitive behaviour. Yeah. So basically, Congress can't break up big tech, but their investigation could inform the FTC and Justice Department of how to respond. So if Justice Department now sees fit that Google should be broken up, then they can choose to do so. So yeah, that's scary. Just in terms of the fact they could essentially change the way my phone works, it could change the way everything I use works on a daily basis. I've already got backup plans in place, so I'm not too worried about it. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of the main intro. This has been devastating for all of them. I'm going to stop recording here, and I'm going to take a bit of a break just to get my facts straight, make sure that the next section of what I talk about is fully correct, and I'll be back when I've got more information. Okay, so we're going to get started with Apple today, I think, and this is going to be a short segment because I'm going to be doing a longer segment on Apple Analysis, one of my other podcasts, which is basically just going to be truly focused on Apple's entire response. Now, Apple, I believe, are a very unique company, actually. They're one of the largest companies, and they're the second largest in phone shipments, as far as I'm aware, secondary to Samsung, maybe third to Huawei, one or the other though. But they still don't have a majority of market share. They don't have I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but actually iOS is still not the ranking operating system. Overall, Android is the ranking operating system in the world for mobile phones, and macOS, again, Windows beats macOS by and always has like 90% of market share or something ridiculous like that. They have no true monopolies, actually. But they do have monopolies over the products that they do work in. And I'm going to get started with some key points from his statement. So he himself describes Apple as a uniquely American company whose success is only possible in this country. So he says that America is kind of the reason why they're so successful. They believe that iPhone provides the best user experience. Of course, they're going to say that. They say that it is fiercely competitive, and as just stated, start quote, Apple does not have a dominant market share in any market where we do business. This is not just true for iPhone, it is true for any product category, end quote. That shows that Apple really, whilst being massively successful, doesn't have to be dominant. And it shows just being big doesn't mean being dominant. However, there are certain things such as the App Store, and Tim Cook actually stated this in his statement. Start quote, we created the App Store in 2008 as a feature of the iPhone, launching with a little more than 500 apps. It was our ambitious attempt to dramatically expand features and customizability of every user's device. Blah blah blah. Curation has always been one of the App Store's chief features and sources of value for our users. We held a quality department store as a model, a place where customers can find a great variety of options but can feel confident that the selection is high quality, reliable and current. End quote. However, they also said that they have a secure and supportive way for developers to develop, test and distribute apps to iPhone users globally. I actually skipped over this because this is relevant to two other articles in relation to this hearing. Now, one of them is from a year ago, but this is still new. So, Apple in 2018 announced that they were including Screen Time. I mentioned this in the intro. Not long after, lots of other apps similar to Screen Time were banned. Apple cited privacy concerns relating to MDM technologies, mobile device management, and then said that they this was due to privacy concerns, and only 6 months later, without major reconstruction of the apps, they were allowed back onto the platform. So, Elizabeth Warren, who was a presidential candidate, but I believe actually ended up dropping out of the race, believes Apple should be broken up, saying they either run the platform or they play in the store. Now, the thing is though, the App Store, Apple is legislator, judge, jury and executioner. It's very different to Google. So whilst yes, Google is judge, jury, executioner and legislator for the Google Play Store, Android is a much more open marketplace. When using Android, you can just sideload another app store. I have a Galaxy Store and the Android App Store. On the Galaxy Store, I can download the Fortnite app. I could download the Fortnite just through Galaxy Store freely, easily, and I don't have to worry about, and it's just without going onto any websites. The Google Play Store, you can't get it through there. You have to go to the Fortnite website. This is so they can not pay the 30% to Google that we would have to pay through the Play Store. And Google doesn't just, kind of allow this to happen. They actually promote it as a feature of Android. So whilst Apple has completely walled off iOS and iPadOS to, okay, your app is either on the App Store or it's not here, although there are now ways around that with myriad other app stores slowly launching around from different people. The fact is, Apple has a very strict policy on what can and can't count. So, luckily though, this apparently had meant nothing for them. Previously, they'd just been able to get away with it. Now, Apple has a whole webpage titled App Store Principles and Practices, saying the App Store offers equal opportunities to developers. So saying that things like Google Maps, Facebook Messenger, and Amazon Music, freely available on the App Store, do this sorts of things. However, it's full of holes. It's completely inconsistent on its enforcement of these things, and it chooses when it wants to start enforcing it. Spotify can't ever be the default music app on an iPhone. Chrome may be able to be the default browser app on an iPhone. I personally don't have access to this yet. Apple being slow about rolling that feature out, it said that when applications are approved, so probably not until the public release. There's lots of factors in this situation that really do kind of make me wonder just how broadly Apple does feel this. And one thing I do take exception with something that Tim Cook stated. As far as I'm aware, there is no way to freely distribute your app on the Apple App Store. I can't find that way. As far as I'm aware, you have to pay them $100 a year. So he says that they are distributed freely, but as far as I'm aware, all developers pay $100 a year. Now, I may be wrong about that, and it may have changed, but every time I search how to put an app on the App Store, or do you have to pay an app on the App Store, it's come up with you have to pay Apple $100 a year. So he is being very specific with his wording that they don't take a commission. It's not going on to the fact that it already costs $100 a year, and then they expect, and in fact leave no choice but for you to have 50% of your revenue go through Apple's App Store. So for Apple's App Store, Apple has to get 50% from the second year and 30% for the first year of a subscription. Now, some apps such as Netflix and I think a couple others are exempted from having to go ahead and include this in their store. But others, like Spotify, they're completely left to their own mercy, and I think that this is completely unfair. I'm actually going to move on to a complaint shared by Airbnb in just 2 seconds. So, let's go over the Airbnb statement right now. Okay, so this story on Airbnb, which I'm going into now, was actually published on July 28th. Also, sorry if it seems a bit disjointed. Basically, I've had to take a small break just to read through the article, as there were some things which didn't quite make sense and I wanted to line up. Now, basically, antitrust pressure had been mounting on Apple's App Store policies before this anyway. But basically what happened was that Airbnb had to have some sort of online virtual sales, and due to these virtual sales, Airbnb was pressured by Apple for a 30% commission. This was referred to by the commission, as I should say, as I believe it pandemic profiteering. So this sort of pandemic profiteering, as you could call it, was said to be anti-competitive and showed that Apple did not treat all developers equally. Now, The Times reported that Airbnb met with lawmakers from the How to This series antitrust panel, the same people responsible for questioning Tim Cook. ClassPass was claimed to have met with lawmakers but had actually denied the meeting. ClassPass discontinued their classes because honouring the commission would require price increases that would dramatically reduce demand for the classes. Apple offered to waive the in-app purchase requirement after the decision had been made, but the company decided not to resurrect the project. And that completely shows exactly why Apple did not treat everyone fairly. So Tim Cook in his meeting or statement said that the App Store treats all developers equally. So after the pandemic started, both companies started offering virtual services as a result of COVID-19, and when they started doing that, Apple requested 30% of sales made through their iOS apps. ClassPass rejected this and said they would discontinue classes, and when ClassPass decided to discontinue classes, Apple offered to waive the in-app purchase requirement. Apple also does not offer services competing with Airbnb and ClassPass, which may be why they're doing this. However, Apple's policy of taking 30% of fees did take a very big, or at least a part in the discussion around all of this, and Apple did not offer, and critics alleged, including myself, that the fee makes it harder for competing with Apple's first-party services. I don't want to go too far into Apple, as there are going to be a whole this podcast episode dedicated to them, but this kind of thing shows how Apple really does not treat everyone fairly. They're willing to waive ClassPass's in-app purchase requirement just because they wouldn't have their app on the App Store. That, in my opinion at least, should clear non-equal treatment to other parties. So, yeah. Basically, long story short, Apple is not treating everyone fairly, and they never have, as far as I can tell, and they probably never will. If you look at Spotify, Spotify are probably the company that's made the biggest kind of setting out of it, out of all of the other companies involved. Others are now starting to get bigger about it, but when Basecamp got brought in their battle over the 30% commission policy, they actually allowed it to be on the App Store, and then Apple blocked it from receiving updates because there was no way to sign up in-app, because Basecamp didn't want to offer the 30% fee. In my opinion, if you don't want to pay someone a 30% fee, then you just don't offer an in-app purchase and you leave a link to a website. You should be able to do that. If I ever have an App Store for anything I create in the future, the first thing I'll do is say, yeah, feel free to just include a link. Just include a link to where you want to sign up, don't worry. No fees have to go for us. Like, how hard is it to just lose 30%? You're already getting $100 as far as I'm aware, from every single developer in the App Store a year. Like, can you not just tone it down? Google, they charge you, I can't remember, I think I paid about 12 quid for my developer license. And then I think they do have some sort of recurring purchase. I don't have to look into that one now, and I haven't really heard about it. But the fact is, Google still takes less money from you than Apple, and it's basically, Hey had to completely change the way it worked, as Hey said they had to offer free email addresses for 14 days to allow it onto the store, because they didn't want to pay for it. Now, Apple says that this is fair. In my opinion, all you do is hold it on a store shelf. Yes, okay, I understand paying you $100 a year. At the end of the day, Google charges 12 quid, but probably already had loads of your information anyway. But regardless, it doesn't change the facts of all of that. Apple is, they're not dominant, so again, it could be a money factor, but they make it harder for services that compete with their core services, their Apple services in a way. So Spotify can't compete directly with Apple Music because of this, because as far as I'm aware, I don't think they offer premium subscriptions through the app anymore. I can't remember whether they changed that back or not. It gets completely annoying. But regardless, I'm not going to spend too much time on Apple, and it didn't look very good for them in terms of the App Store anti-competitiveness. It just, they got bombarded. In the next segment, I'm going to go over Google's practices and what they have done in a very similar light, but not quite the same way as Apple. So, give me a few secs and I'll be moving over. Google's business model is the problem. That was the statement from David Cicilline, the representative in charge of the antitrust case in Congress. He completely tore into Google CEO Sundar Pichai of the company's dominance in search and use of data to monitor would-be competitors. All companies do monitor would-be competitors and see where they're going to see what they can improve in their own product lineups. However, Google has more access to any other device. Google originally evolved from a turnstile to the rest of the web to a walled garden, increasingly keeping users within its sites. Okay. Walled garden is Apple, not Google. I'm sorry. I hate the word walled garden and Google. Like, how much are they outreaching to others? Apple, everything is now in-house. As far as I'm aware, everything apart from maybe display technology, possibly a bit of RAM, a few things are still outsourced, but almost everything with Apple is completely in-house. I'm very scared to switch over to an iPhone because I'm scared I won't be able to switch back if I choose to. Or if I choose to, I just won't be able to find my Samsung phones the way I find them now. And I won't be able to enjoy them because I've gotten so used to the integration and magic just works as Apple has. I don't want to get locked into that, and I'm scared of being locked into that personally. This is personal fear I'm talking about here, of being locked into Apple's platform. I have been scared of this for a long time. Google, on the other hand, are not a walled garden anywhere nearly as much as Apple is. Google allowed, yes, Google slowly been taking dominance over Android, but that's just to make it better for consumers. That's different. And at the end of the day, Samsung and other companies do have control over their own OSs. And if they really wanted to, they could just get rid of the Google Play services entirely out of free choice. Now, for years, companies like Yelp have accused Google of stealing their content in search, diverting clicks from their own sites onto Google's. This is wrong. In fact, Google threatened to delist the website unless it was allowed to scrub its content. That's very wrong. That should never be happening. And Cicilline outright asked Peachy, isn't that anti-competitive? Now, he didn't outright address the competition concerns, he just said, start quote, when I run the company, I'm really focused on giving users what they want. We conduct ourselves to the highest standard, end quote. Google's under several formal law antitrust investigation by law enforcement. Justice Department and coalition of state attorneys are engaged in process of tech giant California opening its own into the company earlier this month. So they've also cited interviews with small businesses and emails between Google employees that suggest the company uses insights to identify competitors and that it boosts its own sites and products in search. They have loads of products. When I search I'll search up email right now in Google. I'll do it right now if my thing wants to load. Sorry, I've got a lot of stuff going on my computer between virtualization today. It's a busy day for work. If I search email in Google search, the first result is Outlook. The second two are Google with Gmail and email. The fourth is BT. Fifth is Mail. Outlook again. Outlook. An email app on the Google Play Store. Wait, I thought Inbox... I think Inbox is gone. No, and then it came up with email clients for Mac at the very bottom and people also search for. Okay, if I search for DuckDuckGo, because there's rumours that they're trying to stop this sort of thing from being found, it actually runs as an ad and then comes up the first thing with a whole page dedicated to it on the right hand side when searching it. If I search up search, okay, now if I search up search, it will probably come up with Google first. Okay, let me search up search engine. Search engines. Here we go. The first one is actually an article of the 17 great search engines you can use instead of Google from the 5th of April 2020. Yeah, I don't see Google really directing me to their own sites. Okay, yeah, fine. What are the top 10 search engines? Google's number 1, Bing is number 2, Baidu's 3, Yahoo is 4. But again, those are linked to other sites. Like, if I search shopping or e-commerce, Okay, to be fair, that's just the first e-commerce company I actually see is Shopify. If I search shopping, I see my working. Okay, so I see my local shopping centres. Then I do see Google Shopping. Then I see my local shopping centre again. Then I see London, Matalan, lots of different companies. If I search on shopping online, I see ASOS, Matalan, Amazon, Next. I don't see Google anywhere underneath the ad section, or even in the ad section. That's that. There is a see shopping online thing on the right hand side here, which just brings up loads of results from different websites. But those take me to Nike, Missguided, Wish, River Island, Topshop, Roman Originals. That sort of thing just adds. It just adds again. Like, yeah. Yeah. So, I don't see Google as a walled garden in any of my searches. And also, I don't have personalized results turned on. I have personalized results turned off in my settings. So I don't have to worry about it. Now, if I search podcast, this will not come up with an Out Digital World, I'm assuming. Yeah, it just comes up with a load of podcasts. Okay, so I actually don't see Google Podcasts on here. I see Apple Podcasts, BBC Podcasts. Google Podcasts is third, but that is an app on the Play Store. Podcast Player is right below that. There is a podcast section at the very bottom of the first page, but again, it's at the bottom. Like, yeah. Again, as I say, this is not a walled garden as far as I can tell. It doesn't appear to be walled. There are other concerns about Google which are warranted though. But I don't believe in Google prioritizing its own things. However, start quote, when asked, start quote, did Google ever use its surveillance over web traffic to identify competitive threats, end quote. Pichai didn't deny the allegation directly, saying, start quote, Congressman, just like other businesses, we try to understand threats from, data which we can see. And we use it to improve our products for users. End quote. That kind of a yes without saying a no. That kind of a yes, basically. But what do you expect them to do? Do you expect them to not use any of the tools at their disposal to figure things out? Like, really, do you expect them to just coast along? Like, you can't expect them to not use tools that other companies use. And yes, they have more access to tools. I'm not being naive with that, I'm just saying. It is a fact. They deserve to be able to use tools they build. Yeah, that's Google for you, really. I'm going to go on to Facebook next, but I'm going to take a small break. Again, it'll be in the same episode, just with a new segment. So in the next segment, you'll be hearing about Facebook, and then I will also finish off with Amazon. And I'm actually going to do a roundup at the end of what I think will happen in relation to this. So, Apple was described as having a monopoly over the App Store industry, especially on their devices. Understandable, because they do. It is a known fact. Google was described as a company that has a business model. That is the problem. But what about Facebook and Amazon? The last two companies that we haven't taken a look at. Well, they didn't get as much time in the limelight, I don't believe, when I was watching it. Whilst yes, some very serious questions were asked, they were more or less asking about the one main section of their business. So, Mark Zuckerberg in Facebook, let's go straight on to him. Instagram. He was facing the majority of his questions on Instagram. And basically he said, quote, this is in an email. Quote, these businesses are nascent, but the network's established. The brands are already meaningful, and if they grow to a large scale, they could be very disruptive to us. Given we think that our own valuation is fairly aggressive and that we're vulnerable in mobile, I'm curious if we should consider going after one or two of them. What do you think? End quote. Yeah. Facebook, little tip for you. Have those sorts of or Mark even, just have those sorts of conversations face to face. When you put that kind of thing in email, you can completely just not deny it. So, for those of you who are unaware, they got access to loads of emails during this hearing and at Congress, and it basically gave them everything on Amazon's acquisition of Facebook. I mean, buying a company itself isn't necessarily illegal, but the way it is neutralizing a competitor. Now, in Zuckerberg's reply, he said that it was a combination of both improving Facebook and neutralizing a competitor. So, Eversman, who is the one who is the chief financial officer, is that, start quote, all the research has seen that most deals fail to create the value expected by the acquirer. I would ask you to find a compelling elucidation of what you are trying to accomplish. End quote. Eversman went on to list 4 potential reasons to buy companies and his thought on each: neutralizing a competitor, acquiring talent, integrating products to improve the Facebook service, and other. Now, according to Zuckerberg, it's a combination of neutralizing a competitor and improving Facebook. Start quote, there are a network effect around social products and a finite number of different social mechanics to invent. Once someone wins that specific mechanic, it's difficult for others to supplant them without doing something different. End quote. 45 minutes later, Zuckerberg actually sent a carefully worded clarification to his earlier Lucy remarks, saying, start quote, I didn't mean to imply that we'd be buying them to prevent them from competing with us in any way, end quote. These emails were revealed today during the House Antitrust Subcommittee's hearing on antitrust issues in tech, as Representative Jerry Nadler, a Democrat, questioned Zuckerberg about the Instagram acquisition. The emails, along with several other messages and documents from 2012, show that Facebook, specifically Zuckerberg, wanted to buy Instagram to avoid competition. Start quote, Facebook, by its own admission, saw Instagram as a threat that could potentially siphon business away from Facebook. So rather than compete with it, Facebook bought it. This is exactly the type of anti-competitive acquisition the antitrust laws were designed to prevent, end quote. That is what Nadler said during the hearing on Wednesday. Sending clarification about not preventing companies from competing with Facebook is itself evidence that Zuckerberg knew he'd revealed too much, according to the committee. A calculated walkback intended to help the company avoid future scrutiny of a deal. In a presentation of the emails to members of Congress, the Antitrust Committee's lawyers actually labelled the slide "Whoops." That's a bit ridiculous. But anyway, by the end of April 2012, Zuckerberg was moving towards a deal, saying, start quote, I just need to decide if we're buying Instagram, end quote. He wrote in a series of emails sent days before he made the offer to buy the company. Start quote, Instagram can hurt us meaningfully by becoming a huge business, end quote. Now, wow. He also said that if Facebook didn't buy Pinterest or Foursquare, and they succeeded, they'll just regret not doing them internally. I don't know what happened with that in terms of Pinterest. I believe Pinterest is still a separate company. But Instagram was definitely a threat, and yeah, that was wrong. Start quote, I've been clear that Instagram was a competitor in the space of mobile photo sharing. There were lots of others at the time. They competed with apps like ViscoCam and PicPlease and companies like Path. It is a subset of the overall space of connecting that we exist in. And by having them join us, they certainly went from being a competitor in the space of being a mobile camera to an app that we could help grow and to help get more people to be able to use. End quote. Instagram was hugely popular within Silicon Valley before it was acquired. Instagram was interested in buying it and ended up buying it, but Twitter also wanted to help Instagram, and in fact immensely helped it in its earliest days by letting users find their Twitter using friends on the app. They made an aggressive pitch to buy the company, offering between $500 million and $700 million. But Kevin Systrom rejected the offer, and the first week of April 2012, Zuckerberg called and offered to acquire the company at 13 employees. Systrom's board, led by Matt Kohler, an early former Facebook employee, encouraged him to take the meeting. Facebook was preparing for its IPO at the time. That's an initial public offering, and it had not yet figured out how it would transport its large audience of desktop web users to mobile phones that were rapidly becoming ubiquitous. Zuckerberg offered Systrom something Twitter didn't: relative independence. So when joining Facebook, the company gave him enormous resources to build Instagram and let him run it as CEO. So Systrom agreed and said that with his board, if Instagram took measures to copy Instagram or target the app directly, it would make it a lot more difficult to grow. End quote. Facebook's orientation guide for new employees also contains the sentence, and I think this really nails it. Start quote, if we don't create the thing that kills Facebook, something else will. End quote. The company was sold for $1 billion. However, the final purchase price was $715 million, as the deal closed in the aftermath of Facebook's rocky IPO, when the company's stock had lost much of its value. It has recovered, but the deal underwent a standard review by the FTC, in which each company hired its own lawyers to look for any evidence that the deal was anti-competitive and should not be approved. Facebook argued that it did not compete with Instagram directly, but that Facebook Camera, a recently launched photo sharing app, did and was one of dozens of photo sharing apps on the market. This approach neatly sets aside the true strategic value of Instagram, which lay in helping Facebook amass the largest user base in the world, around which it would go on to build a dominant advertising business. And CNN opined that Zuckerberg was paying a steep price for a startup that had lots of buzz but no business model. The FTC declined to prosecute, in part because the antitrust regulation since the 1960s has been based on the idea of consumer harm, measured largely through price increases because both Facebook and Instagram offered their services for free. The FTC believed it would have difficulty proving the deal would harm consumers. So one possible outcome of a congressional antitrust hearing is a refinement of that standard to more closely scrutinise deals. Both Instagram were much smaller in 2012 than today, and it's unclear that Instagram would evolve to become something bigger than a photo sharing app. It has surged past 1 billion users and has basically become a sequel to Facebook. I definitely personally use Instagram. I go on there almost daily, and it's incredible, really. However, according to Zuckerberg, start quote, I think the FTC had all of those documents and unanimously voted at the time not to challenge the acquisition. In hindsight, it probably looks obvious that Instagram would have reached the scale that it has today, but at the time it was far from obvious, end quote. Now, yeah, I don't know, this is interesting. Yeah, so basically the FTC chose not to challenge it. And when the FTC completed the review of the acquisition in summer 2012 without holding any open hearings or even issuing a public report, the agency noted it might reopen the inquiry at an unspecified future date. quote, as the public interest may require, unquote. The UK Kingdom's Office of Fair Trading also reviewed the deal, and so did the California Department of Corporations. Never found any reason to block the deal, and within a few months of the acquisition, Instagram has 80 million users belonged to Facebook. However, Zuckerberg's email suggests he knew better than regulators how valuable acquiring Instagram and other competitive startups would be for Facebook. This is from an internal Facebook thread in January 2012. Google Plus, start quote, Google Plus is a red herring. We're getting distracted by I'm not going to say that word, clone, while guys like Instagram and Pinterest ramp up and create new markets that we should have seen coming. End quote. After the Instagram deal closed, Zuckerberg emailed the engineer referring from the post. Start quote, I remember your internal post about how Instagram was our threat and not Google Plus. You're basically right. One thing about startups is you can often acquire them, end quote. It was massively important. Holy, I didn't see this part. One reason people underestimate the importance of watching Google is that we can likely just always buy any competitive startups. Thus it will be a while before we can buy Google. End quote. That was written by Zuckerberg in an email to another employee who wrote to congratulate him on the Instagram acquisition. I am officially at a loss for words. Wow. Okay, they full on had their intention to acquire Google. Jeez, that, wow, I didn't see that until right now, actually. Some other things that were asked to Facebook. This is a question that I believe I actually did in the intro, but this is from Sensenbrenner. He asked about an incident that happened on Twitter. Actually, he misunderstood where it happened. About where is it? Here it is. So Donald Trump Jr. had been suspended for making false claims about face masks and the drug hydroxychloroquine. Zuckerberg, now Sensenbrenner is a Republican, just for people's recollection, but Zuckerberg pointed out that this incident happened on Twitter, however also said that posts making false medical claims would be removed because they could cause an imminent risk of harm. House Judiciary Committee Chair Gerald Nadler, a Democrat, introduced emails collected for the investigation showing Facebook discussing acquisition of Instagram. That's what I just went over. What else is there here? Let me see. Here, so this is something that Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat, asked to Facebook about the question of Russian election interference on Facebook and its role in promoting racism and anti-Semitism, as well as a response to the hashtag Stop Hate for Profit campaign supported by organisations like Colour of Change, which submitted a letter to Congress warning that disinformation that, quote, jeopardises the physical, social and political health of our society at large and black communities specifically, end quote. Now, Zuckerberg had said, start quote, we're very focused on fighting against election interference and we're also very focused on fighting against hate speech. But he also said that Facebook had built really sophisticated AI systems to remove hate speech. Following Raskin, in another reminder of the hearing's unusual circumstances, the committee took a break to troubleshoot technical difficulties with one of the witnesses. We're not clear which one it was, although it presumably wasn't Zuckerberg. Let me see if I can find anything else. Here. Jayapal, again this is back on the Instagram, said, has Facebook ever threatened to clone the products of another company while also trying to acquire that company? Zuckerberg replied saying that he couldn't recall if they had. Jayapal, I'm really sorry if I'm saying that wrong, asked specifically whether Facebook have threatened Instagram with development of a similar camera product. So you know she is a Democrat. I just believe it's important that people know what kind of party these people are coming from so they get an idea of where they're from. Yeah, that happened everywhere. Now, all four tech CEOs promised Representative Ken Buck, a Republican, that they would not tolerate the use of forced labour or the sale of products manufactured with it on their platforms. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through my notes here because I kind of got everything in a... Okay, yeah, that's kind of the main... Oh, hang on. So, hang on. Yeah, Jayapal also questioned Zuckerberg about not changing its approach to advertising based on the hashtag #StopPaperProfit boycott. Start quote, she asked, start quote, are you so big that you don't care how you're impacted by a major boycott of 1,100 advertisers, end quote. Zuckerberg replied saying, start quote, no congresswomen, of course we care, but we're also not going to set our content policies because of advertisers. I think that would be the wrong thing for us to do. We've cared about issues like fighting hate speech for a long time, end quote. Yeah. Okay, let's go on to Amazon then to go do a quick summary. So let's go on to Jeff Bezos and his kind of responses, and then I'm actually going to go into the Ciceline's last comment on all of this, which I just read, which is scary to say the least. Jeff Bezos came under fire by lawmakers over the alleged use of third-party seller data in developing its own products, and Pramila Jayapal, the Democrat from, I believe that's Washington, asked, start quote, let me ask you, Mr. Bezos, does Amazon ever access and use seller data when making business decisions, end quote. Bezos highlighted the company's policy that said he can't guarantee the policy had never been violated. He also stated they continue to look into that very carefully, but he's not satisfied they've gotten to the bottom of it, saying that he's going to keep looking at it, but it's not as easy for them to do as some of the sources in the articles are anonymous. Yeah. That's a shock. Amazon also doesn't sell Echo speakers at a loss unless they're on sale, but they're almost always on sale. So this is accusing them of undercutting rivals, allegedly keeping people like Sonos from getting a foothold in the market. But at their full retail price, the company isn't taking a loss on products. Now, Amazon Bezos replied at its list price for the company wasn't losing money on the Echo, suggesting it's either breaking even or making a profit, but also admitted that sometimes when it's on promotion it may be below cost, yes. However, Amazon's Echo devices always seem to be on sale. Camel.com tracks Amazon's price history for a wide variety of products, and I got a graph on my screen right here, and it basically suggests that devices are on sale as much as they're not. Yeah, that's insane, personally. Okay, I'm just going to wrap this up with the, this is a quote at the very end of it from, this is a quote at the very end from Ciceline, saying that, start quote, this hearing has made one fact clear to me. These companies as they exist today have monopoly power. Some need to be broken up, all need to be properly regulated and held accountable. We need to ensure that antitrust laws first written more than a century ago work in the digital age. End quote. Oh dear, I literally just saw that quote as I was scrolling down. I missed it when I was originally reading these articles. By the way, I've kind of gone over everything. Jeff Bezos didn't get asked that much. But, I don't know what to say to that. Obviously, I understand we're being properly regulated and held accountable. I feel like I can definitely see if I can see one of these companies being broken up, I can almost guarantee Google would probably be the biggest target. Facebook is almost a guarantee, I think, because they've now been there's something about their Instagram acquisition that now been ruled as illegal. Yeah. But wow, I think... Yeah, I'm just thinking about Google being broken up right now, what that would mean. So, in theory, Nest would go its own way, Google Search would go its own way, Android would be completely spun off then. Probably. It depends how big the breakup is, really. Jeez. We're getting the report out at the end of summer. Like, at the end of summer, we'll find out what they're saying should be done, and what companies will be breaking up, and what parts of the companies will be breaking up. Wow. I don't believe the Congress actually has the ability to break up companies, but Justice Department can refer to Congress hearings to make a decision, so... I'm trying to think, what would the consequences be for Google breaking up? So, Android is open source. I currently use Samsung smartphones, so I can probably get by if the Google Play Store had to shut down. If companies just move their products over to the Galaxy Store, I'll be fine. But right now, the Play Store is what I rely on for all of my apps. So if they say had to shut down the Play Store as a result of everything kind of being split up, because they're no longer allowed to work with each other, I don't know. Wow. I don't know, it depends how big the breakups are. If they say split off Google's ad business and then Google's Pixel business into two separate departments, Pixel can just have a partnership with the core Android business to make it the same as it basically is, just in a different way. Google Ads, to be honest, they don't need to be integrated. They can be spun out, and then Google can be a customer without being the owner, so it'll just allow them to do what they've already been doing. But the actual thing will be run independently. The one I'd be most concerned about actually is Android. The one I'd be most concerned about is actually Android, to be honest. If Android is spun off into its own section, Samsung, currently I rely on Android off my Samsung device, but it could see a major update occur on my device saying Google Play is not available, blah blah blah. I won't swap from Android. I will not swap, to be honest. I can't see, like, if they take away Android, like, they can't shut down, I don't think they'll just shut down Android. Jeez, imagine if they just shut down my phone operating system. Okay, I honestly have no idea what could happen with the breakups. I'm kind of picturing a massive, I'm picturing something absolutely massive right now in terms of the breakup in these sorts of companies. So yeah. But long story short, he's fully said that some of them need to be broken up. So yeah, that's everything for the next day. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Sorry it's such a long one, but yeah. To be honest, I will be doing editorial podcasts basically on what Google being broken up would mean and what Apple being broken up would mean. I think is probably the best way for me to go ahead. You can expect both to come out probably tomorrow and Saturday respectively, for Google tomorrow and Apple for Saturday. as I need some time to kind of think about the effects of both of them being broken up. Yeah, sorry, I'm utterly shocked right now, I'm sorry. Just seeing that has got me in utter shock and concern about what this could mean for the future. It does really show that the companies should in a way be broken up. Yeah, this could create a very different landscape in technology than we are previously used to. So, yeah. Anyway, my name's Luke. This is the Down Out Digital World the next day. Today's episode has been completely on congressional hearing. And I'll see you in tonight's episode of Down Out Digital World and future episodes of Down Out Digital Dive, Apple Analysis, Android Analysis, Linux Lite, and Down Out Digital World. Thank you for listening.